So, Procreate Dreams has been out for about a month now, and I've had some time to sit down with the app, see what I like, what I don't like, and just have some fun making a few things with it. After my initial testing and just getting used to how the program works, I figured it would be best to give myself a project to work on, to get my feet wet and really just immerse myself in the app. So in this video, I'll be showing how I made a short little animation and discussing my own personal pros and cons that I found along the way. I wanted to stay true to the idea of making this animation while only using Procreate apps. So the first thing I did once I had the idea for what I wanted to make was draw the background in the original Procreate app. I normally draw and animate most of my works in Clip Studio Paint, but I thought it would be a fun exercise to get out of my comfort zone and would probably help give me insight to what I thought might be lacking in Dreams, since I could do a direct comparison from the two Procreate apps. I occasionally draw and doodle in Procreate, but I don't normally use it for large-scale works or anything too intensive, so this was a bit of a learning process for me as well. The idea I had for this short little animation to test out Dreams was a quick little shot of some sakura petals floating across the background of a cool Japanese torii gate in the water with some mountains and clouds off in the distance. I figured the best way to give my first impressions would be to go over the pros and cons that I came up with while working on this animation. So let's start with the cons and we'll finish off with the pros and my overall thoughts. So first, I just want to say that a lot of the cons and the things that I found frustrating or lacking are mostly due to the fact that Dreams is still a very new app, and a lot of these problems that I'll bring up are probably going to be resolved soon or in the near future with new updates and with the inclusion of new features. And one quick note before I begin, I think Dreams is a great app and Procreate is a company that's doing really awesome things. So anything I say or make note of in this video is meant to just be constructive criticism with all the best intentions at heart. I thought I'd get this one out of the way since it's the easiest to forgive and overlook, but since Dreams is a new app, I wasn't expecting perfection and I knew there'd be a few bugs here and there. Most of the time, it wasn't too bad, and after a quick closing and reopening of the app, any problem I had would go away. The second con was about the flipbook mode. So the first thing I found a little frustrating was not being able to use the flipbook mode as effectively as I wanted to. It's nice that you can swipe away the timeline and enter a more focused and bigger drawing environment, but the fact that you have to flip through every single frame and not just go from one drawing to the next makes it a bit of a hassle, and you can get lost if you're not paying attention to exactly where you are in the timeline and what you're drawing on. When I was laying down the roughs and needed to keep track of multiple moving parts at one time, I ended up just leaving the timeline in full view as it was easier for me to keep track of things that way. But when I moved on to the coloring stage, the flipbook was nice to have because it was simple enough just to scroll to the next drawing and keep coloring. It would be nice if Procreate implemented a setting for flipbook mode where you can toggle on or off scrolling between individual frames and the actual next drawing, regardless of how many frames away it is. Another thing that I found difficult as well was adjusting and spacing frames on the tracks of the timeline. The grouping and organizing of tracks and layers is fairly straightforward, and I think they made it about as easy as you can for working on an iPad, but the ability to create consistently spaced drawings that are, say, 3 frames apart each time would be nice. The fact that you have to individually space out whatever drawings you create can take up a lot of time. It is possible to create a blank track with the spacing you want and just duplicate that, but that doesn't always work unless you're animating every single thing with the same spacing and same amount of frames. For example, animating 24 drawings all on 3s, but for every single track. If there was a function within each group or track to customize spacing or set all drawings on 1s, 2s, 3s, or 4s automatically so that you could go in after and adjust to your liking, that would be extremely helpful, and I think it would save a ton of time for animators. Another thing that isn't necessarily a terrible con, but rather something I didn't really enjoy and found a bit frustrating to work with was the playback on the timeline. How much of the timeline is shown on the screen dictates the playback range of what you're going to see, which is kind of cool and may seem intuitive at first. But when you're in the flow and want to play back a certain range of frames, it can take you out of it when you have to zoom out on the timeline to exactly the range you want. While it's quite easy to pinch and snap the timeline back to full view, you don't always want to play back the entire animation. It would be really nice to have a way to set the parameters for what you'd like to play back at any given time like you can in other apps and software. Honestly, they could keep it the way they have it now if they just added a setting to override what's being played back with a custom parameter you could set that could be toggled on and off. I think that would be the best of both worlds. This con is something I 100% know will be solved with future updates, but I feel it's important to at least make a note of, and that's the lack of a lot of tools and functions that are standard within any drawing and animating software, including Procreate. The fact that there is no lasso tool makes even the simplest of small adjustments incredibly difficult, and for an app that's trying to streamline and innovate how artists can animate, not having that doesn't help. There are also some issues with layers and how editable things are within their own groups and tracks, but again, these are things that are probably already being worked on and will come out within an update or two, so I can 100% give them a pass on this. My last con for this video is the color fill in Dreams. This was probably the thing that seemed small but ended up causing me the most frustration and the biggest time loss. When I was filling in the petals I had drawn, I had noticed no matter what percentage I had the fill threshold at, it would still leave a small gap unfilled between the lines I had drawn and the fill color that got put in. Sometimes it was almost unnoticeable when you zoomed out, but that's not something you want to have to worry about when you're coloring. So because of this, I had to go in and color in any gaps manually around the borders of every single drawing. While it doesn't seem like that big of a problem at first, it actually ends up costing you a ton of time. I probably could have finished the whole coloring process in half the time or less if I didn't have to do this. I've had similar problems with the fill tool in Procreate as well, but it really hurts in Dreams because you have so many frames that you're filling in, and often just flats and simple colors that you wish could just be done really quickly and almost automatically. So it makes it even worse that you have to go in and clean up and color in the rest. Adjusting the threshold didn't help, and it may be that you can choose a different brush that will work better with the fill, but I was using one of the basic Procreate pens for my line work, so if it's not going to work with a large amount of brushes, then it's still going to be a huge problem. So that's it for the cons. Now I want to talk about some of the things I really enjoyed or found to be great unique features within the app. So one of the best things about Dreams being exclusively on the iPad is that they can really take advantage of the touch screen functions and gestures. The one I used the most was the two-touch pinch that snaps the canvas or timeline back to the full screen view. This was really helpful when I needed to quickly take a look at the project as a whole, and is one of those things that I wish were available in other iPad animating and drawing apps. One unique feature that Dreams has that, as far as I know, no other animation app has is the ability to uniquely automate keyframes through its performance mode. Since you're working on the iPad and have touch functions at your disposal, this is a great way to do something you wouldn't be able to do in other conventional softwares. The ability to adjust and automate things in real time using touch and gesture controls is really fun, and I think something that could end up setting Dreams apart from the other apps and software. I used it for a few elements of my Sakurajima animation and had a ton of fun trying things out and just messing around with it. Another quality of life aspect is the compatibility with Procreate that Dreams has. Importing files and entire projects from Procreate into Dreams is super simple, and it imports in a way that is immediately editable within Dreams, so that's great. For this animation, I drew the background in Procreate and then exported it directly into Dreams with some of the layers separated, and it automatically created a grouped track for me with the layers intact and exactly as they were in Procreate. This is great for anyone who mostly uses Procreate for drawing because now you have the full power of Procreate at your fingertips when designing backgrounds or adding elements that Dreams doesn't have the ability to do yet. And the interface and UI is all the same, so there's no learning gap when it comes to jumping over to Dreams. The last pro I have is possibly the most important to me and what I think will make Dreams stand out from other apps in the future. Dreams at its core is about simplicity, innovation, and accessibility. While there are some problems, bugs, and features that I find lacking, Dreams has done a great job at being a simple and easy to use animation app that also provides some features that you can't find anywhere else. The way they've managed to transfer all the qualities that people love about Procreate over into an animation app is great. I think if they can keep these core qualities at heart as they go forward in developing Dreams, it'll do amazing. And the fact that it's only a one-time payment of $20 makes it incredibly accessible for small, beginner, or independent artists. So, what's my overall opinion and impression of Procreate Dreams? Most of the things that I considered cons are not deal breakers for me, but some of them are small things that after adding them all up, they do start to affect your workflow and how streamlined you can make the process of animating. This is a big deal when it comes to animation because losing even a few minutes here and there compounds and becomes exponential time loss for someone who may then just think, well, I could be doing this faster in another app or software. But so far, all the things that have worried me seem like they can be fixed or improved upon in updates in the near future, so that's really promising. Besides the main point of apprehension, I was overall really happy with the app and had fun animating in it and trying out all the different features. As someone who primarily uses Clip Studio Paint for drawing and animating, am I going to switch over to Dreams now? No. I'll continue to use Clip Studio, but I'll keep an eye on Dreams as they improve it, and we'll probably come back to try out some animations on it here and there just because it was so much fun working in the app with this project. So, to sum everything up, I just have a few final thoughts. I think it's really important for companies like Procreate to do things like this. They're challenging a lot of big softwares and apps and actually making something affordable for independent artists who don't always have that much money to spend on monthly subscriptions or more expensive softwares. So I just want to express my gratitude to the team over at Procreate for going out on a limb and making an app like this at this price for all of us. I appreciate it, and I know a lot of other smaller independent artists do as well. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.